Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. Am I audible? Am I too loud? Am I too quiet?
Perfect.
Perfect? Okay, I'm getting perfect from some people and too quiet from others. All right. Okay, I'll speak up. Well, welcome. Welcome to Binghamton. It's so great to be here. What a beautiful place where we've got to hold the VM workshop today. You know, it's been 2 years of, there's probably nothing that hasn't been said about COVID that I could say, but all I can say is that it's an absolute pleasure to be back here and to see all of your smiling faces here at another live event and back for the VM workshop. So yeah, super happy to have you here. Just a quick introduction. You're probably looking at me and wondering, who is this British guy talking at me from the front? I don't know your face. So my name is Gerard Howells. I'm I like to say, recovering systems programmer, currently an architect. And I've been working on the VM platform for a few years now, and I absolutely love it. Yes, I have a funny accent. The Brits in the room, if there are any, will be like, you don't sound British. And the Americans will be like, you sound weird. I don't know where you're from, but I've been in the US for about 12 years, which is why my voice sounds so very strange. And when I go back to the UK, people are like, where are you from? But yeah, I absolutely love the mainframe. I've been working on the mainframe for about just a little under 10 years. I started working on it at America First Credit Union. There you go. There you go. Thank you. Two of my former colleagues are here today, so it's great to see them here. And there's a couple of sessions that you can look at on the YouTube channel for the VM workshop that detail some of the America First work that I did. It's been a great privilege to work on this amazing platform, particularly VM. Which is my first love. So I started working on the platform as a Linux sysadmin, and very quickly was like, what's this cool green screen stuff? I want to play with that, that's awesome. So I ended up working on VM, and Sam Cohen, you in the room?
Ivy over here.
Hi, it's Sam. Sam was kind enough to be my Jedi master. I always feel like I was his Padawan, and he passed on some of the amazing VM knowledge that he has to me, and yeah, it's one of those amazing journeys that I've gone through to learn about this incredible platform and become a part of it. One of the really important things that I think about the VM community is that spirit of learning, and I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. But first of all, let's talk about Kyndryl. So that's after America First Credit Union, I moved to Kyndryl. For those of you who don't know what Kyndryl is, and it's kind of a new name in the business. I like to say we're a startup of 90,000 people. It's funny because people say, who do you work for? And I say Kyndryl, and they're like, is that a tech startup? I'm like, technically. We only IPO'd on November 4th, so yeah, we're a pretty new company. For those of you who don't know, it used to be IBM Global Technology Services, so the managed services division of IBM spun off last year, November 4th, into its own company, and now it exists as Kyndryl. So yeah, it's a pretty great place to be. I'm enjoying it a lot. So it's a fun place to be. So check it out. But I just want to say a big thank you to our hosts. It's been kind of a tumultuous time planning this conference. When we started planning it after the last virtual event last year, we had absolutely no idea whether we would be able to be here today. And towards the end of last year, it was looking doubtful. Omicron was around, and we got the word from our amazing representative here, Andrea, at the university, that they were like, no live events. And we had to wait until late January, early February before we realized that we were actually going to be able to be here. And I'm just thrilled that we're able to be here. So can we give a big round of applause for Binghamton University? Thank you so much. So it's the big one. It's been 50 years of VM. Weirdly, I haven't been around for all 50 of those years. I know you're shocked. My haggard appearance. But it's an amazing thing to be able to be here to celebrate the 50th anniversary. VM has its origins in CP67, which that's the image that I could find of an IBM 360/67 machine that the CP67 started on. So, virtualization is a new thing, though, isn't it? I was talking to someone when we were setting up the other day here at the university, and they used VMware in some of the labs upstairs, and we were talking to them about what the conference was about and how this is we're celebrating 50 years of virtualization, and it's one of the amazing things I think is that even within the IT industry, a lot of people don't know that we've been doing virtualization for so long. So being part of this platform and being able to work on a platform that has got such a long history and has been able to refine and produce an incredible level of support for virtualization and that close machine connection that it has so that it runs super optimally. I remember when I first started working on VM, I had a little bit of VMware experience in the past. I know, please don't boo. I love VM now, I promise. One of the things that I was truly amazed about was just how many virtual machine instances you could run in parallel on a single piece of hardware. I was used to running, an Intel box that could run, 4 fairly hefty virtual machines, and kind of aspirate along slightly and just not run quite as well as it should have. And then you come to this amazing platform, and it's like, oh, we're running an entire financial institution on one piece of hardware. Amazing, absolutely amazing. I always like to joke about this, and unfortunately, I apologize if there's any TSM, Tilty Storage Manager or Spectrum Protect developers in the room, but it's what ruined this. Back at America First, we ran the ATM's application on the mainframe, on Linux on Z. Ran absolutely brilliant. The first application that was run on there. And the cool thing was, for years and years, it ran processing hundreds of thousands of transactions a day with a virtual machine that had 768 megabytes of RAM. This is up until 2017, 2018. Then TSM comes along and goes, I'm big and fat, and it needed more memory, so I had to make the machine bigger. When I went over a gig, I died a little inside. So, I just wanted to kind of ask the question, why has VM persisted so long? VM is an amazing technical product, absolutely. But I think the really important thing is the culture and the community. And you, everybody in this audience, is a big part of this. When I first came onto the platform, before I worked on the mainframe, I worked on Linux mostly, on distributed systems and various different flavors of Unix. And when you navigate around that community a little bit, some of the communities are great, and some of them are like, you ask a simple question about how an application works, and they're like, don't read the source code. That doesn't happen in the VM community that often. For the most part, there's the VM listserv, that we can go to and ask questions, and then there are people within the community who are willing to answer questions. And I think the entry barrier into the VM world isn't that high. If you want to be a part of a community and you jump in enthusiastically with both feet and attempt to provide back to the community once you feel like you've gotten something from it, this is a place that will just welcome you with open arms. And as one of the big things about it is that we're facing, unfortunately though, is that skills gap. And I think that it's going better than it was 5 years ago. I know that the VM Lab and a lot of the IBM efforts to bring in younger talent into the community, they're starting to pay off. But I still think it's something that we can help by being a welcoming community, continuing to share the knowledge and be kind to those people coming in, and understand that they might not understand some of the reason, if we talk about CP running on a CP, that's confusing. I remember when I first came into the IBM world, it's almost like learning a new language, because there are words used in the mainframe world that aren't really used, that are in fact are used in the distributed world, but they mean a very subtly different thing. So let's do our best to be welcoming everybody in this room who I know does a great job with that. So it's really part of what makes VM a fantastic thing. So I absolutely love it. Another thing that's really great is the spirit of fun. I think we all work on systems that do pretty critical things. Financial, insurance, retail, airline, all this stuff that facilitate pretty serious industries. The fact that we managed to maintain this jovial spirit of fun is something that I think is really important, and that we can persist as we go on. But we also need to talk a little bit about the future. VM has been around for 50 years, but we've got amazing new technologies and incredible people that are helping us to continue this incredible journey and keep VM going. You're going to hear a lot of stuff this week about all of the amazing new technologies, and some of the stuff on the schedule is absolutely incredible. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback about the sessions that we've got this week. And it's going to be just a fantastic conference, I think. But one of the things that we need to know is that those of us who are in the community and joining the communities, it's our job to advocate and push forward. We need to increase the awareness, I think, and make sure people know about this incredible technology that is VM and VSE and Linux on the mainframe. There's a nasty habit that you sometimes run into in the mainframe world where you'll talk to someone and they'll say, oh, no, that's on the mainframe. And what they actually mean is it's running under MVS, ZOS. Great product, fantastic product, but it's not the totality of the mainframe. The VM and Linux and VSE and TPF all make up a part of the mainframe ecosystem, and I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure people know that. It's definitely worth talking about because it's cool technology. Okay, I've got a few thanks to give. The first group of people that I'd like to thank are the VM Workshop Planning Committee. Like I said, after we concluded the last virtual event, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to be here. So just a quick round of applause, if you would, for all of these wonderful people on the Thank you so much. And I just want to call out a couple of names in particular as well. Those of you who in the community will know this, but we've had a couple of high-profile retirees this year. So quick round of applause, if you would, for Marion Eggert. Thank you. And then he's sitting right up front, and I'm going to embarrass him terribly. But Bill Bittner, legend of communication. Another thanks I'd like to give is to Perry Reuter. You might notice in your bags that this says the architecture reference card. Perry up here is the one who provided this, so please give him some thanks.
I do have a session scheduled for Saturday, and for those of you who are planning to attend, I won't be doing that session this year. Unfortunately, I just haven't had time to start on that session, so it's canceled. Hopefully it'll be next year.
Thanks, Perry. So a couple of things that you can look at here, other than the sessions, are Bill has put together this incredible, I was privileged enough to help him set it up yesterday, VM Mobile Museum. There's some cool stuff on there. So that's going to be in 2201, yeah, upstairs in room 2201. There's that, and there's some stuff also from, what's it called, the Endicott Historical something. There's some additional stuff that's up there in addition to Bill's stuff, but go and check that out. Another thing that he's got up there is VM Pictionary, so have some fun with that. That should be pretty enjoyable. Yes, another group of people that I'd like to thank is our sponsors. They stuck with us through COVID, many of them. When we said, you paid to come to the 2020 event, you want your money back? A lot of them were like, hang on to it, we'll be back. And they've really stuck with us. So very, very grateful to the sponsors. Without them, it would be a lot harder to put this event on. So if you could give a round of applause to them, that'd be great. Another thing I've been asked to talk about is a little bit about, so I know some of the travel arrangements are a little bit difficult. I know it took me a while to get in here from Utah on Tuesday. But if anybody is going to Syracuse Airport, talk amongst yourselves. There's people looking for rides. So please have a chat about that if you could. So I'm going to hand over now. Is Harvey in the room? Harvey, excellent. So the next speaker is going to be Harvey Stengler, president of Binghamton University. So please put your hands together and welcome Harvey.
I don't think so. I'll try without the microphone. I'll just start to walk closer to you. Thank you for coming today. I knew if I was coming to a session where most of the audience were computer scientists, I would be well overdressed. So thank you for tolerating the suit today. I've got some other things that require it, but certainly not this group. And I really appreciate you choosing Binghamton University to host or to hold your conference this year. In 2015, I gave the opening welcome remarks to the VMware conference right here in this room. I'm sorry. No, I told myself I will not say anything related to computers at all. I had memorized that too. So, but I'm not here to talk about computers. I'm here to talk about welcome you to the area, welcome you to Binghamton, which is the home of IBM. I mean, when Thomas Watson was driving across and he located this small town and decided to start his company here, or to start a company that he had been working for here, it was a long time ago. But he was very instrumental to the construction of this whole community. And then along came George Johnson about the same time, maybe a little bit earlier. George started the Endicott Johnson Shoe Factory, and between the two of them had 40,000 employees, manufacturing employees in the Binghamton area. It was incredible. The population was almost twice what it is now. Unfortunately, the decisions of those companies one to end and one to move really had a big effect on us. And so the role of who was going to maintain and who was going to grow the community started to fall back on whoever stayed around. In 1970, 1967, Binghamton University became a State University of New York's university center, which made it viable to become a university that could house a number of academic institutions, number of academic programs. Computer science was one of our earliest ones, and certainly the influence of the IBM personnel who came and worked for Binghamton University was really important. But we could not, as a university, build back to what it was in those days. 40,000 employees, we have about 3,000 employees. We've grown by about 500 employees in the last 10 years. We cannot replace them. However, I think we can use the heritage to make this a better place. So if you get a chance to get around Binghamton, you'll go to the downtown area, which is one of the top college towns in the country. It's nice this time of year because the students aren't here. So you can enjoy having a hamburger in one of the student hangouts and not be bothered by the 18 to 22-year-olds there. But just not too far from here, Endicott. Endicott is really where IBM was housed for most of its time in the Binghamton area. Endicott is still trying and recovering. Most recently, we are a finalist for the New Energy New York Build Back Better regional competition. This is a $125 million grant that we are about this close to winning, which will bring manufacturing back into the Endicott area. We're going to be using, if anybody are IBMers from Endicott, Building 258. We're going to be using Building 258 to create a state-of-the-art manufacturing prototyping area where companies can come and learn how to manufacture lithium batteries. If you know anything about Binghamton University is the home of Stan Whittingham, the 2019 Nobel laureate who invented the lithium-ion battery. He's been here for 35 years. He is one of the proposal writers for that proposal to the federal government. If we win that starts to bring manufacturing back here. That could create about 2,000 jobs in that area right over there. To get started, we already have a gigafactory for lithium-ion batteries being constructed there. And this new facility that we hope the federal government will fund will allow people to come and learn how to manufacture lithium batteries. Not a simple thing to make, but the complexity of manufacturing computers certainly dwarfs that. So to have the ability of all the people in the area who are great scientists and engineers to help support that is going to be important. And then next to it, where the Johnson City Endicott Johnson Shoe Company was located in a village called Johnson City. We've decided to locate our health sciences programs there. We've built 5 new buildings, on our 5th right now, to house our new School of Pharmacy, School of Nursing, Occupational Therapy, Physical Therapy, Speech and Language Pathology, an elder care clinic, and also hosting a regional campus for Upstate Medical University that's in Syracuse, part of the SUNY system. It'll add a few hundred jobs into the area as well. So all I can say is that we're trying really hard to build on the legacy that Thomas Watson left here for us, and we think we're doing a pretty good job, but it's a long way there. I hope you have a great time. I hope you have a great time in your sessions. I looked through the grid. I'm a chemical engineer. I had no idea what any of those sessions were talking about, but you folks do. So good luck and enjoy Binghamton.
Thanks so much, Harvey. Appreciate you being here. So next up, we're going to move on to our keynote speakers. We have a pair of keynote speakers today, both from IBM, Todd and Tina Tarquinio. Kara is the director of the Linux Ibm Z16 and Linux One, and Tina is the director of Ibm Z16 product management. So without further ado, please give it up for Kara Todd.
I can try without the mic. I'm normally kind of loud. For those standing, if you want, there are lots of seats. I know no one ever wants to sit next to me in the front at work either, but if you guys want to come forward, I won't be offended if you want to walk through while I'm talking. All right, Tina, the bigger button, right? Okay, so thank you for the introduction. I brought Tina with me. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the state of the business, what we're working on, and have brought Tina with me. Some of you may have heard that we launched the latest version of the mainframe, the Z16, so Tina will dive into that a little bit more with all of you. So with that, let me get started. I don't see a clock in the room, so if I go long, just yell at me to make sure I have more time.
I'll keep going.
So, okay, thanks. I know sometimes they'd run like the different color cards in the back, you know, so they yell at us if we're talking too long. So many of you have probably seen the digital transformation terminology, right? So not to overuse that, right? But the disruption we've had in the last couple of years in changing the way we're working, changing the way we're doing business, that's really accelerating more and more. It's not about efficiencies, it's about a necessity to stay in business. So if people aren't changing the way they're doing, if they're not digitizing, they're not going to be around much longer. And we're seeing that in the market. And it's really critical that businesses are looking at IT. IT's not just a cost, IT's fundamental to differentiating yourself and beating the competition. There are challenges, however, right, when you're looking to transform. So you might say, oh, that sounds old. We've been talking about digital transformation for a while. But it's really accelerating now, so even those that have started that journey 5, 8 years ago, in all seriousness, are now moving on that path much faster. As they're doing so, however, they run into some challenges. So in the top, there's kind of 3 pillars here. It used to be, people say, we're going to move more to a homogeneous solution. All workloads are going to move to public cloud. Yeah. We're not really finding that's the case, right? So it's more about heterogeneous, about putting workloads where they make sense. Some will be in the data centers and they're humming along there. They stay up, they're gonna stay there. There's other workloads that may move to public cloud, and most clients have multiple public clouds, not just one. And when you're dealing with that heterogeneous environment, there's complexity that you need to deal with. So that complexity, how do you manage it in a consistent manner, is one of the biggest things that I hear from clients and when I'm working with partners that we need to address. Next is really this explosion of data. So and I'm not sure this is a surprise to anybody in this room, right? But there's more and more data being collected. We're storing it, we're making it so it's secure, but we also need to make sure we're getting some value out of that data. So one thing I'm sure Tina will touch on is AI. We've been talking about AI, now we're making it so it runs faster. I won't steal that thunder, but the importance there is we're for the first time, right, seeing inferencing passing training, but now it's about really getting value for the business out of that data. And that's another thing that's really gonna differentiate companies, and that's what the C-suite is really looking at. Not so much what's the technology, but how do I solve the problem, right? And how am I gonna solve that problem best? And then the next follows. On the right side of the chart, again, changing the way we're working, how are we gonna do operations efficiently? But not only efficiently, if you don't do it in the right way, you can't run your business, you'll go out of business. I mean, even in my hotel, right, there were signs on the wall saying, you know, we're having a labor shortage, right, bear with us. More and more it's about how do I automate, and not everything honestly, but you wanna automate what can be automated so you can focus your skills and your resource on the differentiation and bringing you to the next level. And underpinning, right, all of this are security and sustainability. So really with the pandemic, and like we said, I hope everyone traveled here. It was awesome to see everybody in person again. I'm actually out of practice. I haven't done this in a while, right? I mean, I'm used to doing this virtually. I've met with all of you the last couple of years virtually. Security needs to underpin, right? There's an increase in the number and the complexity of and creativity of cyber attacks. So trying to stay ahead of that is a CEO level problem now. Again, what's the problem and then how do you solve it? But security is top of mind for, I would say, every client in the industry right now because it's expensive if something happens. So it used to be, okay, if my security is good enough, that's fine. Well, now you need to be ahead of the hackers. You need to be ahead of the next breach, of the next ransomware attack. Because if you're not, you could go out of business, right, depending on the size of your infrastructure and enterprise. And sustainability. So this is one, I'm, for those of you that know me, the outdoorsy type, like to go hiking, right? Sustainability, reducing plastic uses, all of that's been important to me. But now for the IT, energy consumption, footprint, right? This is all top of mind. Not only, there's regulations, so in Europe and other countries now, but it's not just the EU. Worldwide, right? This is all, this, across industries, across geographies, this is something everyone is talking about at the board level. What are you doing? Are you aware of your ESG goals? How much do you need to reduce energy consumption? And so this is something that we're seeing in the marketplace that's more and more important, that we need to consider all of these issues, and then how do we solve them? So I won't spend too much time on this. I've flashed this up before. When it comes to hybrid cloud and the heterogeneous infrastructure and what are the common when we're trying to manage something commonly across those. When it comes to containerization, right, IBM's solution is focused on OpenShift, and that is running on Ibm Z, Linux 1. It's actually, we had ZOS mentioned. There's ZCX for OpenShift, which is also allowing you to run OpenShift containers and manage that, orchestrate that in a ZOS address space. So it's all about giving choice, but being able to manage things in a consistent way. And I won't dive deep into everything. There's gonna be lots of sessions, lots of technical deep dives, lots of people smarter than me that are gonna talk to you about lots of topics on here. But all those issues and challenges that I talked about, a lot of them are solved by our technology. So the scalable infrastructure, the resiliency that we provide, over 7 nines of resiliency, the reliability, it's always up, you can rely on it. I think it's taken for granted by a lot of clients, right, that it's always up. But we are continuing to innovate, continuing to push the boundaries of providing an infrastructure that for enterprise mission critical workloads gets the job done as part of the overall IT estate. All of that is leading to, right, a pretty good growth curve, right, of the amount, and this is by installed MIPS, so this is actually workloads running on our hardware, so this is both Ibm Z and Linux 1. The dark blue are what we call our specialty MIPS, the light blue are general purpose MIPS, so in here is included, right, things running on ZVM, things running on VSE. Linux workloads fit in that dark blue specialty MIP area. You can also see the explosion of growth in that section. Linux is actually growing at a 24% CAGR We have seen more and more adoption. 91 of the top 100 enterprises that we're working with on Z are now running Linux. So it's something that has been taken off, and the growth curve of that is steadily going up, right? Clients that are adopting Linux and hybrid cloud are actually growing across the mainframe, right? VM and ZOS as well at a faster clip than those that aren't adopting Linux and hybrid. So we're definitely working with clients, figuring out how it makes sense in their enterprise to solve those challenges I talked about. And that's really ultimately with the qualities of service that we provide is really growing over time. And I do want to thank each and every one of you in this room. So we talked about culture and community. The community, the support, right, the partnerships across the enterprises is really how we're here. Right, it's about solving those business problems together. IBM does not do that alone, right? We do that in partnership with all of our vendors, our partners, those running software on this ecosystem, and right, all of you here that come together to discuss those challenges and how we can make it better and iteratively improve. For Linux, what it's really all about driving that growth is taking standards, so we see more and more standards-based, right? The complexity of that heterogeneous environment, how do I manage it in a common way? We talked about skills. For those that have an affinity to Linux, that may be coming from x86, coming onto mainframe, having the affinity of skills already to Linux makes that transition much easier. For running certain workloads, and a lot of those workloads may benefit from running it next to and co-located to workloads that they have on ZOS. So we're seeing a lot of growth at some large clients, some large banks that actually have estates on multiple, maybe TPF and ZOS, and they're also bringing in Linux and moving large monolithic workloads from x86, which are really getting out of control with the number of x86 servers, and then consolidating that onto Linux on Z for many reasons, right? There's cost savings, there's economics where it makes sense with TCO, there's that security, the resiliency, and the support that everyone here provides. And all of that, right, together brings a trusted relationship where they can address the security, the sustainability, and the challenges that they're dealing with every day, and that are getting a lot of attention at the top levels of companies as they try to get ahead and differentiate themselves. And just one last example before I hand it over to Tina to talk some more about Z16. So I didn't do a lot of use cases. Last time we got together, if you remember, I had, for those of you that were the last one, I had Marcel Rentran with me, who's the CTO for Linux on the platform. And he went through a lot of kind of use cases, different clients, what we were seeing. And I can share those for anybody that wasn't last year. It's probably in an archive somewhere, Bill. And by the way, awesome to see Bill here. And, but this is a new one. So we actually worked with a large North America bank, who I won't name here while up on stage, but we really, you can see all the different pieces of the solution that came together. ZVM is on there, right? We worked Ibm CIC, Cloud Infrastructure Center. Steve's probably in the room somewhere here, and we'll be talking to folks about that. They're looking for ways to automate, to simplify, to consolidate, and they actually are one of the ones that brought a big workload, which in this case was a MongoDB-based workload, because they wanted to offer internally MongoDB as a service to their employees. But they needed to make sure it was secure. They needed to make sure they had resiliency. They needed a DR capability. IBM safeguarded copy. They needed to make sure that they were to the company and to the CEO, right, for this data that they were bringing over. If something happened and got corrupted, they could quickly bring it up, right, almost immediately, and they wouldn't be subject to any kind of ransomware saying, you know, we corrupted your data, pay us to get it back. So all of this was kind of top-level standard. I actually had the opportunity to go to MongoDB World in New York City last week, I think it was now. Things the weeks are going together. And IBM accepted the Hybrid Cloud Partner of the Year from MongoDB for the work on this, and for this being really a repeatable use case that clients are looking at of bringing IBM Linux 1 and Z and this platform and what it brings to MongoDB and that partnership and many of our other clients. And this is just one example, right? But again, thank you for all being here. I know being in person, for some of you it may be your first in-person event in a little while. I know New York City last week was one of my first ones, and I was telling somebody before this that as I was talking to folks and shaking hands, I was like, oh, should I ask before I shake someone's hand? Am I standing far enough back so they're not uncomfortable? So thank you for all being here. I very much appreciate it. I appreciate all of our partners. I know Rebecca's somewhere in the room too, right? We have a lot of partners here today. IBM is very fortunate to have very close relationships. I'm really excited about the growth on the platform, the work we're doing with all of you, and thank you very much. And I am going to hand it over to Tina. I don't know if you want a mic or if you
I might.
Okay.
I want everyone in the building to hear about C16.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you, everyone. I'm Tina Tarquinio. I lead product management for Ibm Z. What does that mean? To me, that means I have one of the best jobs in IBM because my team gets to introduce new mainframes. So we just launched Z16, which I'll talk to you about. And you might have heard of some of our others, Z15, Z14. My team is the one that does that, and it's really exciting. We're always working on 2 or 3, sometimes 4 of these at any given time, which is how we can keep delivering them at a 3-year cadence. And this is a very exciting time because we announced on April 5th, we GA'd on May 31st, and we've actually had many systems ship out of the Poughkeepsie plant. So it's really exciting, and I'm gonna talk to you about it. So I wanted to share a little bit of our strategy, right? How do we keep dreaming up what next for the mainframe, right? We seem to keep delivering these incredible capabilities, and so how do we get there? So a combination of the strategy, working closely with our clients, and IBM Research and other partners within IBM. And we use this strategy really as our guiding light. And hopefully none of this should be a surprise, right? We continue to drive increased system performance. So you'll see that Z16 has increased performance over the previous generation. Industry-leading resiliency, we talk about 7 nines. We talk about, capacity on demand. Industry-leading data privacy and protection, as Kara said, security is top of mind. For almost all of our clients, security is the number 1. For those that it's not the number 1, it's tied with number 1. So everyone cares about security, and it's become table stakes. So we continue to push the envelope there. Workload accelerators. With Ibm Z14, we introduced an accelerator on chip. We did that again in 15, and you'll see us do that again in 16. And optimization across the stack. And this, I really consider our secret sauce, right? Our hardware is beautiful, it's amazing, it does incredible things, but then we move through the firmware, the operating system, the virtualization layer, the middleware, the application stack, our partners, the ecosystem. That is truly what makes the platform as incredible as it is. And so this is where we spend a lot of our energy, right? When we're developing the new system, we want to make sure we do all of this, but we're aligned with what happens when our clients get it in the real world and what they're putting on top of it. So this is really the guiding strategy that has led us through the last, I would say, 4 or 5 generations. So there she is, IBM Z16, as I said, we announced on April 5th, GA on May 31st. Wholly assembled in IBM Poughkeepsie, but those beautiful doors are actually built by a partner not too far from here. So all of these gorgeous doors are built here, and then they travel down to Poughkeepsie to be assembled. As you can see, we continue the 19-inch rack. This was introduced in Z15. Brand new door design. We have an industrial designer in Raleigh who's actually a distinguished designer, and he has a team that designs these doors. And what you can't quite see is if you were to look at an angle inside each of the flat sides of the triangle that are going vertical is a blue panel. So if you were to walk down a data center floor and you had several of these lined up, which is how I like them, many in a row, you would see little snippets of blue as you walk down the data center floor. So it's really incredible. I've had the pleasure to see several of these in person and several getting boxed up on their way out to clients. So that's what the new system looks like. So the challenge when we're introducing a new mainframe is how does my team and how do all of us at IBM talk about everything inside in one page or in something that doesn't take us an hour, because us mainframers love to talk about the mainframe. Actually, for those of you at IBM, if you were to Slack me, my Slack status is almost always making the world better one Ibm Z16 at a time. So I really enjoy what I do, but the challenge is how do we talk about this in a way that we can send a consumable message. And so for Z16, these were the three major technology areas we talked about, right? Underneath all of this is increased core counts, increased memory, LPAR space, all of that. But we really focused our messaging on these three key areas: AI, cyber resiliency, and modernization. So I'll step through each of these. So with Ibm Z16, we are introducing an accelerator on chip for AI inferencing. As you heard Kara mention, inferencing is starting to take over training in terms of focus on AI at our clients. And that is because for the first couple of years when AI, we all decided that AI would be the competitive differentiator, right? We could have a competitive advantage if we could harvest more from our AI. And so all of our clients built up data scientist teams. They created data lakes, and they started to get to work to make models and all of this great stuff. And then it was, now what? Now you have to deploy this model to actually learn. And so we worked with our clients to understand that really the inferencing in transaction is where they needed the most help. And what was really, there were two roadblocks to them really seeing results from that. The first was there was not technology available that would give them low enough latency that they could actually inference in transaction. So what was happening is they would create a clip level. Oh, if the transaction's over $10,000, we'll do the inferencing. They would send it off platform, never a good idea, increases risk and latency, so that wasn't good. Or they would do the inferencing after the fact, which is when we all get an email saying, oops, you might want to look into this. And so neither of those are good options, right? So we had to address the technology part. We had to provide technology that would give them the speed and the scale that they needed. But the other thing we learned through all of our design thinking was actually deploying the model itself was becoming a problem. They would build all these models in R or Python with the data scientist, and then he or she would toss it over to the wall to the production team and say, there you go. But it wouldn't deploy. They had to rewrite it into another language that would run on their production system. So they would spend more time rewriting it in C or some other language so that they could deploy it. Well, that doesn't really make for agile deployment of AI models. And so what we actually invested just as much in on is creating an ecosystem where you could build and train your model anywhere and then deploy it on Z. So it eliminated this translation phase. We created a deep learning compiler. You can leverage the Onyx framework if you want, or you could use Watson Machine Learning for Ibm Z. And so really, we could speed up this process so that you could actually train and learn more and then deploy and have a bigger business impact. So Ibm Z16 introduces both of those things. The accelerator on chip, I have a picture of the chip in a couple of charts you can see, and then this whole ecosystem. And it's really great. We've been doing, we've had design sponsor users probably for the last 3 years in this area. And it's been really great to get their input and see what they think the benefit is. And as with everything else, we have scaled beyond what our clients told us was the max they might have needed, because we like to overachieve and do things like that with our performance. So the scalability is what really matters, right? Because our clients, your clients, are some of the biggest banks in the world. And 1 or 2 transactions a minute is not going to fly, right? They need to be able to do all of them all the time, all day. So that's what we set out to do. Okay, let's talk about this middle pillar, the secure with a cyber resilient system. We actually have several new offerings and an industry-first capability, right? So Ibm Z16 will be the industry-first quantum-safe system. We worked probably for the last 5 years with our IBM research team on introducing quantum-safe algorithms that we could provide to our clients. We obviously have already focused on crypto, ship with crypto cards. So our clients use crypto, rely on our crypto capability, and it's actually what's powering some IBM public cloud offerings. So we're pretty good at the crypto, but we need to keep pushing the envelope. So we're introducing the industry's first quantum safe system. And you might say, why would you do that? Quantum computers aren't exactly everywhere. They're pretty expensive if they are. But really the idea is that our clients need to prepare for when they are ready. I was an intern during the summer of '99, and I spent a lot of my time searching and replacing for dates so that when Y2K arrived, it could be a non-event. And if you think about it, for the most part, Y2K was a non-event. And that's because of the preparation. That's because of the couple of years ahead of that that we all spent, or some people spent, preparing. And you have to think about quantum in the same way, only I think bigger stakes, right? Everything we have today is protected by what we call classical crypto, involving public keys, and quantum will squash most of that. And so there's a lot of work to go through and find where your crypto calls are, replace the algorithms, prioritize which applications you want to do. And so that's really what we want our clients to start doing, right? So we're introducing the new crypto card, the new algorithms, and we actually are introducing in our discovery application software a new feature that will allow you to scan your code, find where the crypto calls are, create your inventory, prioritize, make a plan, and then get to work. And the time, it's not, the thing that is different is that it's not like Y2K. There was a clear time when that was going to happen. Quantum is moving very quickly, but it's not like a set date. So we really do want our clients to prepare. And there's bad behavior out there. There's some bad actors that know they could harvest data now, and they could decrypt it later. And our clients have to hold on to data for quite a long time. A refinance of your mortgage is 7 years. Car manufacturers have 30 to 40 years for warranties. We had a government client that said they had to hold on to Word documents for 75 years. So all of this data that's growing every day is getting protected one way, and in a short time it'll be cracked by quantum computing, right? So we really want to get our clients ahead of that. Also in this security, cyber resiliency, we're introducing 2 new offerings. One is flexible capacity for cyber resiliency. This is the ability to basically swap and stay your whole system, right? So we've had other offerings where you could add capacity in another site, or you could just add capacity permanently. You could add it for a short time. But we found our clients really had to have a way more than just like a weekend DR test, right? They really had to have the ability to swap and stay, to show that they had sustained resiliency planning, which many of our large customers have to show proof to their regulators or their specific regulations in a country that they have a sustained resiliency plan that is beyond, we tested it for a weekend. It's beyond a hurricane is coming or a freak ice storm in Texas. We can swap and stay for a while. And this is really aimed at doing that. So you can swap and stay, you can swap down, you really decrease one site, increase the other, and you can swap and stay for up to a year. So this is new on Ibm Z16. And we're also introducing the Ibm Z Security and Compliance Center. Many of you, I think, are involved in our design thinking activities, and those are aimed at finding where can we make our products better, where can we help you solve some pain points. And a pain point that came through loud and clear was around audit preparation. And so since we couldn't remove the audits, as much as they asked us to do that, we could actually help preparation for the audit. And so a lot of our clients that are in heavily regulated industries, banking's one, government's another, they're constantly preparing for the next audit. I go through an audit maybe once every 2 years, and it's torture. So I can't even imagine having to do this monthly or more often, on an incredible set of IT environment. So they were spending a lot of time just preparing, getting the right records in the right form, in the right place, into the right report to show to the regulators. And the other thing that was a major pain point was the regulators or the auditors were coming in with sort of a distributed background. And I think, as Gerard mentioned, we have a translation problem sometimes where a word here might mean a very different thing here, or the word doesn't actually exist on either side. And so the auditors were coming in and they would have to learn, and then they could audit you, which is really exhausting. And so our clients were expressing is there anything you can do that would just match it up for them and align it with a standard so that we could cut out their education period. So the Security and Compliance Center, I think, really has 3 big wows. The first is system-generated data. So there's around 34 components of ZOS that provide timestamp system-generated data. So that's great. No more collecting the data. It pairs it with a known standard. So in GA1, it's comparing the data to PCI DSS. So that's the payment card industry, which covers a lot of our clients. So it takes the data, compares, and then the third wow is a dashboard. So red, yellow, green, you know where you are. And our sponsor users who are planning, they have been doing a daily scan. So you can stay in a continuous compliance posture and maybe avoid some of the scramble or oops or gotchas when you have a different auditor with maybe a different take on how they want to prepare the audit. So this is actually a new offering, again, available on Z16 that we worked with the IBM Security Division on, right? So we've made a conscious effort across Z16 to not just have a Z introduction, but to really launch with the other partners of IBM. All right, 5 minutes. Okay, let's get to the pictures. Okay. This is a picture of the Ibm Tele Processor. We actually did something different this time. We announced the processor before the system, which par for the course the last 2 years to do something totally different you hadn't planned on. The accelerator is actually on the bottom left. There's a grouping of white boxes on the bottom left. That's actually the Aiu Accelerator. And the other thing I want to point out here is the cache growth. So it's built on 7nm technology. It is actually more real estate dedicated to cache than to compute, which is really part of like the magic here. It's a whole new cache design. We can probably share where CJ, our IBM fellow now for the design. Basically, level 1 cache is the only cache that's real. Level 2 and 3 are all virtual. And that's really how this all, we were able to get the increased cache size and speed. There are up to 200 of these in the system, so we increased the capacity, 11% single thread performance, so generation to generation we've been doing around 10% improved performance single thread. 17% total growth if you were to compare a Max Z15 to a Max Z16. 17% total capacity growth. So I think a Max Z16 has 213,000 MIPS. To me, the more MIPS, the merrier. So I think this is really wonderful. But the way we arrange the MIPS is really what's key, right? So we actually went down a drawer. Z15 had 5 CPC drawers. Z16 only has 4, which means we grew MIPS and cut down the drawers. So each drawer is actually bigger. We know the LPARs need to be bigger. We know we don't want clients jumping drawers. So we purposely arranged so that the capacity and the memory would grow at a drawer level and not just a system level. This is actually an I/O frame in our manufacturing environment, getting ready to go at the time, one of our ESP customers. And I just wanted to end with a thank you. We actually don't really get very far with any of these offerings without the amazing input from our clients and our partners. And so it comes from design thinking, it comes from workshops like this, it comes from councils. We're a little obsessive about the client feedback, but that's really what matters to us, right? We really want to bring technology that either solves some problems for you or unlocks some gates for you to have really new opportunities. So this is a summary of the design thinking that we did on Z16. Over 70 different companies, 1,100 interaction hours, and 23 personas. These are all totally much bigger than on Z15. And this is what we want. We want these numbers to not fit on the chart one day. Like, working with all of you is really what makes this worth it. So I think I probably have 1 minute left, and I will turn it over. I'll turn it back to you. But if you have any questions, let me know. I'll talk about it all day, I promise.
Another round of applause for both Karen and Tina, please. Well, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Get in your Sched app or jump on the website and look at your next session. It's going to be an amazing 2.5 days of incredible technical content. So just one more thing, if you need any help during the next couple of days, look for someone with a badge that looks a bit like this, with a yellow back. That's the planning committee people. They can at least direct you in the direction of someone who could help you if they can't help you themselves. You might notice in the back of your badge, you've got some tickets. Those are for the Thursday and Friday night events. So those are drink tickets for that event. Please mingle, get to know one another if you don't know one another already. Go and grab some refreshments before the next session. And enjoy the conference. Thank you so much for coming, and really appreciate you being here. Thank you.